My mind is set, my grind is set, my heart on ice cold. I'm only here to even the score. Whoa. My mind is set, my grind is set, my heart on ice cold. We down right now, but did it before. Whoa. See from here we going up. Made the call, I shown up. Now the game is on up. Say my name is blown up. We up, 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 we up. See from here we going up. Made the call, I shown up. Now the game is on up. Say my name is blown up. We up, 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 we up.
What's up, everybody, and welcome to the Knighted Ones, episode number 41. I'm sorry I missed y'all last week. As Alan said, that was a milestone podcast, and we'll have hopefully many more to come. So as long as you are watching, we will do them. As a reminder, we are the only podcast that features a former UCF National Champion who's having dinner right now, so he can't be on with family, a former UCF radio host, who is here, an ESPN analyst and hoops player who also couldn't make it, an infamous rapper who is here and will be dropping, something organic again this week. Our resident influencer and IG star who's at a car dealership, and just me and Josh shooting the breeze, talking UCF sports, but that's okay. I've got the energy. Josh is bringing the jokes, I think. And remember to like and follow us on YouTube, IG, and check out the 70-plus teams and conferences on the College Huddle. Speaking of which, I was actually on the College Huddle, and we had a new episode drop last week that talked all about the updates on the impacts of the NIL lawsuit. So make sure you go check that out. We went pretty in depth for about an hour or so and how it's going to affect not only UCF, but other Big 12 teams. So that was an exciting show. This week, we're talking a little bit of Cruton. We're talking some of the pre-season stuff is starting to come out. So I'm excited about that. We'll talk a little bit about what UCF got paid this year. We got some scheduling news. Baseball, obviously, there's a lot to talk about baseball. Overall, great job by the boys, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. And there's transfer news for UCF baseball as well. So that's exciting. And always we'll have Josh with his funny fact of the week, which Alan kind of threw it in Josh's face last week. And remember, we have stats versus facts. And last week it was Alan. So it'll be interesting to see what Josh comes up with this week. But last and certainly not least, but definitely last, but there's only one other person this week, Josh Lazar.
Baseball's out of the regionals, poof like Houdini. M's back on the scene, rhyming clean like it's 03. Sports at UCF, nope, not much on TV, but the Knighted Ones got you with content and sick freeze. The infamous 16, be well aware, because the text chain light like helium through air. Roger sending you to freeze without a care. Is mystical fighting and I'm helping the bear. Back to the show, did you know it really sucked? It's only outdoor track for the next 2 whole months till August when men's soccer goes for the brace and less than 90 days till football rushes those gates. So we're here to fill your empty summer with flows and puns like a baseball shortstop grabbing pub subs he's got it runs. It's your UCF Sports show, the Knighted Ones. Come on, Roger Phipps and the crew, let's have some fun. Let's go.
All right, so Roger Phipps and the crew is Roger Phipps and Josh Lazar this week. Did I hear that correctly, that you said Nobra and a pub sub and runs? Is that what I heard? We're going to get
the lyrics. We're going to probably look up the lyrics. So let me break it down real quick. So we're here to fill your empty summer with flows and puns. Like a baseball shortstop grabbing pub subs, he's got air runs.
Okay, I thought it was Nobra in there. I didn't hear the baseball shortstop because we always talk about what Nobra's eating before each show. And this week he was using a fork, so it was not a pub sub. I don't know what it was, but he was not eating a pub sub. So let's
see. Just like Kendrick, there's multiple layers to it. So there's a little bit of that. There's a little bit of Ben on the pub reaching the top store of bread that he does, and a little bit about our shortstops getting errands.
Yeah. That was Mikey Kluska having a rough weekend. But we will talk about baseball a little bit later. Let's start off with a little bit of football. As you mentioned, less than days. So time to get a little excited. Hope everybody has their tickets because it's I have a feeling this season's going to be popping. And we're going to have sold out stadiums. Great. We mentioned the schedule earlier. I'm excited about the schedule. But this week, the Bounce House was full of recruits. So some big name recruits, including the top uncommitted quarterback in the entire country, Malik Washington. He was here. He loved it. Hearing some chatter that we have a really, really good shot at Malik Washington. He's 6'5", 200 pounds. He's out of Maryland. He plays in Severna, which is near Severna Park, which I used to live in Maryland, so I know it pretty well. And rumor on the street is he was in Javon Boggs's ear this weekend quite a bit, and they were talking about playing here together. So I think that looks good for both Javon and Malik as we stand right now. They both have more visits. Obviously, things can change. You've got NIL. You've got a bunch of different things. And Malik is finishing with his hometown team of Maryland. So the Terps will get a visit. But as of right now, it seems like we're in a really, really good position with Malik Washington, which is huge news because everybody wants him.
I think that was a pause to have me talking. Listen.
Yes, it was, Josh. That's how this works. I stop and you keep the conversation going.
Listen. I am excited. The whole Bounce House weekend is great. If you haven't taken a look at some of the things going on Instagram, on Twitter, there's a lot of high school athletes who are really interested in at least coming out to the Orlando area, visiting the Kia Center. I got to make sure I get that right because they spend a lot of money. Universal Studios, doing all kinds of fun things there and on campus. This is amazing. Shout out to Falcon Motors and Lindsay and Eric with all the cars at the.
Oh my gosh! I was so mad that I saw a CyberTruck on the field that. Do not have that turd on my field.
You understand that there were probably more photos with the Cybertruck and those kids than they were of the Maserati.
Well, it's a Maserati. There were other things that were there that they were climbing into. But
the G-Wagon just
I'm just
this
telling
is
you.
A moment in time. As someone who has a reservation and got the email saying I was going to get one, and honestly, I might still, but I'm going to wait for the $20,000 VIG to go away for the Foundation series. It's a possibility, but you have to understand the moment and what young people are into. And when it comes to cars, the Cybertruck is something that anyone who is 17, 18 years old really, really into. Now, again, I'm sure they're with the Maseratis and the G-Wagons and everything else. If there was a Hellcat there, it probably would have been fine, but
They couldn't put a Hellcat on the field because someone would have done donuts at the 50-yard line. I mean, you just can't. For those of you that don't know, I have a Scat Back. It's my third one. I absolutely love it. It's a Charger, so it's got 4 doors. I travel back and forth between Orlando a lot, so the Hellcat would just be too much gas. My 392, believe it or not, actually gets in between 27 and 30 miles per gallon on the highway. So it works out perfectly for me. But yeah, you cannot jump into a Hellcat and not do donuts. So especially at that age. So that would have torn up the UCF logo. Someone would be drifting. It would just be bad.
Yeah, I'm with you. And so anyway, you are incorrect for the target audience. And that target audience took a lot of pictures in that Cybertruck. Now, they also took pictures and a lot of other things too. I could give it a year. It's not on the field, right? More than likely. But at this point in time, when they are rare, that's still a thing. That's still a thing. So anyway, I will, going back to the entire weekend, I love the graphics that went out. I'm reading the notes saying Josh got a CyberTruck. I will say this. I really, really appreciate everything that has gone on from a UCF perspective to show all of these athletes not only what you can do on the field in a Gus Malzahn offense, but what fun you can have in Orlando. I was in Columbia, Missouri last week, and beautiful town, wonderful people, and some decent things to do. I was actually surprised how much their downtown was nice and had a lot of people out and about, even during the summer session. And you can't go to Disney or Universal in 20 minutes from Columbia, Missouri, as much as I enjoyed that town, right? I've been to Oxford.
No, I mean, the only thing you've got is the Tom Sawyer Museum or something out there.
But I mean, I went to a bar called Twain. I mean, yeah, there's a lot of Mark Twain stuff. What I'm saying is they are great. University of Missouri, great university. Ole Miss, great university. And college towns, pretty much and absolutely. Orlando has a lot more going for it other than just UCF being this behemoth of a university in east of Orlando. And I think encompassing both Gus Malzahn and all the things going on within that offense, because people want to be in those type of offenses. And the other things that Orlando has to offer is a great package instead of just keeping everyone right in at UCF proper, which you can still do well.
So, yeah, I mean, there were recruiting pictures. Obviously, other universities were having their recruiting weekends this weekend too, Florida being one of them. And one of the players there was taking a picture of his hotel room, and there were cracks in the ceiling and whatever. And meanwhile, our guys are riding roller coasters and Islands of Adventure. They stayed on property at Universal. So, you know, back in the day, Scott Frost, you know, they were just going to Disney for dinner. Yeah. But, you know, now in today's game, they can host them the entire weekend. So it was actually pretty interesting. They stayed there the entire weekend. They came back via bus to campus. And then they did the car thing. They did the graphics. And remember, the reason you're not seeing as many graphics come out now is because you're only allowed to do it for guys that are on official visits now. So all those cool shots that we saw this year and in previous years that you saw from a bunch more people, they're no longer allowed to do that. But yeah, I mean, the recruiting experience is bar none here. I don't think we have really good food options here. And they're really, showcasing that this is a place where you not only want to come to play football, but also to live. So the university, we heard it from Trey. We've heard it on many other people and recruits that I've talked to over the years. The university sells itself, but then being able to layer on something like that with the weather and everything else that was going on is a real advantage. And I'm glad that we're taking advantage of it. Speaking of which, although we've been talking about potential commits, UCF did land a 3-star offensive lineman, Gavin Blanchard, this weekend. He's from Wesley Chapel, Florida, which is out west. He's 6'3", 300 pounds in high school. He's the 10th verbal for the 2025 class and the second O lineman of this class. Now, if you go and look, if you go and look at what our recruiting rankings are, we are sitting right around 28th for various sites, and that's largely because of the number of recruits that we have compared to everyone else. So adding, we have the 4-star, we have our average star is right up there with the top recruits, but a lot of top schools. But the recruiting itself is now a numbers game. And so this was a good ad for us. It was an offensive lineman. He's, a pretty good sized dude, 300 pounds already. I remember that wasn't too long ago that none of the UCF offensive linemen were over, 280, 290. They didn't break the 300 mark. And you really need that because he'll put some muscle on in our weight program. And as Kansas State and some of the other games from last year showed, we really need that additional heft on the line.
Yeah, I think that if Herb Hand tells me or has someone that he's reviewed and he wants, done. I wouldn't say he could do no wrong, but pretty darn close. There are really few things that I would object against when it comes to offensive linemen, because we've been pretty good for quite some time on that area, and we do need to get more recruits in. We do need to get that depth, not only from depth from transfers, but we need to get that depth building from the high school ranks. So I think this is wonderful. I'm glad that he was someone who committed during the Bounce House weekend. I think it's Bounce House weekend. I think is what they're calling it.
It is. And supposedly there were a few more, but they still want to go take visits.
Yeah.
And they, obviously, Florida was handing out in their recruiting visits envelopes, right? So they upgraded from the McDonald's bags to the envelopes. But I guess those Big Macs were too expensive now. It's like, what are they, like $12 for a Big Mac meal now?
I don't eat a Burger King. I can't tell you that. What I can tell you is that I agree. B, I'm pretty sure there's a couple of silents that are actually silent. I think there was something like 6 people that committed from the weekend last year. So I expect nothing less. And I wouldn't be surprised from last year and or this year in the next 2 or 3 years when Gus Malzahn is still at the University of Central Florida, if we get a couple of people coming back from some of this work.
That's the other thing that's really important about this. Some people are asking, you've got people that are committed elsewhere to big time schools, Ohio State's, whatever, right? Last year, we had a transfer from Ohio State that we were recruiting 2 years ago, right? One of the top DBs in the country. And we got him in this, not last year, but in this spring portal class. So you are recruiting not just currently, but also for the future of the roster and the transfer portal as we're doing these things. So if you're wondering why that's happening, that is exactly why it's happening. And it's an advantage for us, because if we leave a good impression and they don't crack the starting lineup, because every kid thinks, they've been told their entire life, if they're a 4-star, hey, I'm going to, I'm the best, I'm whatever. And they were, right? That's why they got the 4-star in their local region. But it's a whole nother ball of wax. The top 0.5% of high school players get D1 scholarships. And then if you carve that out even further, I don't know what the actual percentage is. I think it's something like 20% or 4 stars. And of those 4 stars, then you have, Alabama, that you have 25 schools that you're competing on 85-man rosters. And a lot of these kids will go in, and especially if they're skill kids, they think they're going to make the roster. Chances are you're not. So take your bag for your year, right? Go through the strength and conditioning program, and then they realize they're not going to play. Then they start portal hunting. So that's exactly what we're doing. Autry was another big visitor this weekend. He's a huge visitor. Borderline 5-star guy, depending on where you look. And he was very, very positive as well about his visit to UCF. So that could really help defensively.
Yeah, and whether that happens now or in the future, I mean, we'd be lucky to have a lot of these young men who are going to do amazing things on the football field in the future. Autry, he had a recruiting video, I think, at the end of his visit. I saw that on.
They did it for a few of them, yeah.
They were nice. And I don't know if they were. I think most of them were similar, but not exactly the same. So they did slight edits for the.
Well, they did. They changed They just basically did the front end of it with the roller coaster shot, and then they, at the end of it or towards the middle, they changed it to their photo shoot. That was in there, and that's basically what they did.
Yeah, that's just bringing out 7 lights, Roger, now with the video.
Hey, listen, 10 years ago, those kinds of shots would have been really expensive to do on a roller coaster. Now it's not. So, strap a GoPro to them, put it on there, ride it. You saw Eric DeSalvo losing his mind in the front.
I love that. with
He
him.
does
and
it
Gus.
for the brand. He does it for the brand.
We need DeSalvo. Hey, we want you on the show. We need to get you.
Well, I mean, I can talk to him. I mean, we talk on a regular basis. I just haven't broached that subject. There's been some other people we've been trying to get on, and he's been busy with recruiting. I mean, he's extremely busy during recruiting season. So now that it's kind of getting to the off season, this might be our window. So great idea on that, Josh.
Yeah. It's interesting. So like between him and Jimmy, I mean, it's interesting. So,
Jimmy left. Yeah, Jimmy left and came back. Yeah, Jimmy was gone for a while and then came back. Like he was here for a really long time, left and then came back. Whereas DeSalvo has been here the entire time.
Well, I think Jimmy wanted to leave and get more experience, but maybe the idea was always to come back. But I mean, Jimmy, and when I was in the Rowdy Knights, when I was a student, him and I and some others went to. I think he went to the Penn State game with me. Remember that whole bus story? I think he was on the bus with me. Adrian.
Do you remember the joke we told about that bus story?
No. Yes, I do. Actually, but listen, let me get him on. We'll get Jimmy on the show. Maybe we'll see if he remembers any of that stuff. I'll tell you this though. I remember we were doing some stuff when O'Leary was just coming into UCF, and we were putting these like O'Leary cardboard things around campus, and with a Coca-Cola because they all paid for it. It was me and Jimmy and a bunch of other Rowdy Knights and other UCF fans. And there was, and Gert Garman, who's another just amazing UCF legend in her own time, if you're not familiar with her. This is guerrilla marketing all day, every day, because we have no budget. And we just had I had some great memories working with that crew. And it's just really amazing to see that this is like 20 some odd years later, that everyone that has still been around, like there's very few people who have been at UCF for 20 plus years or darn near close in athletics or otherwise. I mean, I've been paid by UCF for over 26 years over 26 years now. And even in my own department, there's not a lot of people left. So within the sports and football, it's just great to see. It's like not just Manny. Manny's been around forever, but there's some younger people, like people in their 40s who've been there since their 20s. And some of that you just don't get at other universities. That's like the difference with UCF versus other universities when we're talking Big Five or a Power Five and Power Four and all these things that are going on.
All right.
That's why.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off.
I was going to go right into that's why we're now like on Lindy with 4 teams instead of the 3 it's always been, and what Andy Staples was talking about recently, which I know you're going to get to in a moment.
Yeah, actually, I was gonna. Thanks for the pivot, but I was actually gonna pivot that into NIL a little bit because that has a lot to do with what we're doing from a recruiting perspective. So yes. It's great that we have a great social media team. I think we learned a lot during the 2017-2018 season. We have our voice and our personas that we put out there. But, that's now extended into NIL. And all of the sports have seen a significant increase in NIL. We actually had more NIL dollars last year than what Oklahoma State had for its basketball team. And it's increased this year. For baseball, they had a huge lift in their NIL, and they're going to have more of a war chest. And we'll talk a little bit about the transfer portal for baseball a little bit later. But for the sport that we're talking about, football, one of the things that SJ Tui has been doing a really good job on is bringing both folks that are UCF affiliated, like our Crypto King that we had that had a I think it was a $5 million, which was at our time the biggest contribution we've ever had. And he came back. Taylor came back and said, I hope this is the shortest, biggest donation ever. And I have a feeling it will be. Well, guess what? Now there's a new sheriff in town. That has come in. That's Mike Ripoll, and he is the founder of No Bull. He actually founded Vitamin Water back in the day. That's where he made his first millions. And now he's got another company called No Bull, which, by the way, Tom Brady recently folded his TB12 line into the company for its stake. So he's involved. I think he's got 40% ownership in the company now as well. He is a huge donor for St. John's, which is alma mater. He's also the one that's paying Rick Pitino to be there. He infuses a lot of cash into that program. And so now he's adopted UCF. And for those that don't know, he actually lives in Islesworth in Orlando. He was becoming more involved in basketball. He's a big hoops guy. He played hoops. But now he's getting into football. So one of the things that UCF put out today was RJ Harvey is now signed with No Bull. And he actually took his NIL money and bought his offensive linemen, since we're talking about offensive linemen, 2 pairs of shoes each. But the big news with all of that is this guy is a multi-billionaire. So he's our first billionaire donor. Some of our previous donors, were not, biggest donors were not affiliated directly with UCF, actually ECU. And now we've got someone who's affiliated with St. John's, and it's kind of like the Tillman Fertitta effect. So I expect to see a lot more. And then you've got the close tie-ins, obviously, with Tom Brady. I expect a lot more money to be flowing. And if we can wrap in, you got Taylor, you've got him, you've got all of the other people that have been so generous to the university for so long, the Nicholsons and all of those other folks that you've heard about. That bodes really, really well for us to be able to move forward as the players become more costly with this NIL lawsuit that we've had recently. So that's huge news for UCF to have a multi-billionaire in their fold and publicly come out and say he's adopted the team. And it's not just the football team, but also the basketball team. And that's a really, really big step forward and a direct result of being in the Big 12. Josh, what do you think about that?
I love it. I love it. So I grew up in New York. I think we talked about that. When I was growing
There's
up,
only one borough in New York, according to you. So, yes, we've
Long
talked
Island
about it.
Yeah. No, and I think this guy grew up or went to school in Flushing, so we're not that far away. So here's the thing. I grew up, when I watched football with my dad, he didn't go to college, and he just adopted what was around him, which was pretty much in Long Island. It was Notre Dame and Penn State. That was it. But for basketball, this is the 90s basketball. It was St. John's. I was a pretty big fan of St. John's basketball. So I understand the kind of Long Island city-ish St. John's devotion for basketball, especially if you went there. But St. John's does not have football. And to be honest, Mike is probably in the double gated Islesworth. If you've never been there before, Islesworth has one gate on the outside, and once you drive through a little bit, there's another gated area within Islesworth. That's like the shack-ish area. Well, that thing.
Hold on, Josh. Have you ever been through both gates?
I've only been through one gate, not the second gate.
Ha!
I know that because I drove around because I didn't know what I was doing, found the second gate, and couldn't go through it.
I've been through both.
Yeah, it's so, but he's like that second gate that no one else can go through.
Yeah, I know
probably.
what you mean.
Unless you have a boat, which most of them do. So this is great. I understand where he's coming from as someone growing up in New York, not as a billionaire, right? But as someone who grew up in New York, didn't have a football sports team, had a basketball team that I liked, came down to UCF, lived in Orlando ever since. And, well, I adopted UCF because I went there, but I get the idea. And so I love this. I love this RJ Harvey. I can't.
Dude, RJ Harvey wouldn't even tell them that. He, when he announced it to the team, this is what kind of great character guy he is. We talk about, in this era with all the transfers and stuff, not being able to root for people. You should 100%. I mean, JRP is that kind of guy too, but he gave up his NIL. I don't know if people realize this or remember this. Last year, he gave up his NIL to share it with the teammates on the online too. He actually announced that it was coming from No Bull. Didn't announce that he was actually taking his own money and buying this stuff for the O lineman, taking care of his own lineman. He didn't even take the credit for that. It actually took Jimmy Skiles, since we mentioned him earlier, to come out and say that. That's what you want in your running back. That's what builds teams, right? That's what you want. You got your star player who's super humble, extremely talented, who's coming out and doing that. It reminds me of a few football players. One named Barry Sanders that came out of Oklahoma State, that went to the Detroit Lions and obviously made a name for himself. Now, here's the thing. We know about T. Boone Pickens and what he's done for OSU and what's happened since he passed on. I was talking to our OSU insider and Big 12 Big 12 conference host for the College Huddle. I can never say the College Huddle. It comes out as Hunter, Cuddle, whatever. Never College Huddle. I don't know why, but it just is.
You're always cuddling.
Yeah, I'm always cuddling, just like you did on that Penn State trip. But that being said, my point is with that, we know what these guys can do. Tillman Fertitta is another one. Think about what Oregon has done with their multi-billionaire, right? So this is a huge step and a big step for UCF to be successful, especially in this era where it's more competitive, to build NIL and collectives and offset some of those player costs that are coming down the pipeline. This is a huge boon for us. And, having someone like that on board is also good. And I'm just going to take a step out of the sports world and into the business world. This is great for connections for the football team. Yeah. If you're a player and you've got a connection with a multi-billionaire who's supporting the team, you need to, be taking advantage of that as much as possible, because that's a kind of guy that can open up a lot of doors for you outside of a car dealership. And that's no bull. That's right, no, bro. He finally woke up. He was sleeping on the keyboard. I was seeing the banners. There was like ZYX, whatever. But he woke up. And perfect timing for that. That's no bull. I love it.
Could you find a better name of a brand for UCF to partner with?
No bull. I didn't even put that together until you just said that. That is freaking amazing.
I'm not the first person that put that together. If you've heard about this, it might be where everyone is going to. I understand everyone feels like they should not be one of our I wouldn't say enemies. I wouldn't go rivals. I wouldn't go enemies. It's not that hard, but rivals. But yeah, and I get that. But they will be for a while. But that's perfect. Just throw that right.
Listen, their status as a rival is up to them. They either pull it up by their bootstraps and get their act together, or they don't. I mean, they are doing this whole stadium thing. I mean, that's happening. It's not the Taj Mahal that they all. No, it will. It is. It's too far down the pipeline for them to pull back on it now. But I will say that, I will say this: the challenge for the Cows now is that the Cows, and it would have been even better if it was no cows instead of no bulls. But the challenge for the Cows now is this: they said no to a stadium when they had the opportunity to build something like ours, right? Mm-hmm. And so now they're building something. Things have gone up exponentially. That stadium is basically ours with a little extra pizzazz, right? And whereas we took and built up to that and don't have a whole bunch of debt, I don't know how they're going to pay for it, to be honest.
Well, that's going to be fun, but that's not our problem. And as Nelson would say, I mean, we're just at this point where. Well, how about this? And let's talk about what I talked about a few shows ago. Not only do they have to pay for this, if they want football players in that stadium, cough up another $20 million.
They're not going to have to pay that. Not the $20 million, because they have a salary cap. Part of this is a salary cap, right? So they can do up to half of their TV conference revenue.
Oh, so they don't even get enough money.
Yeah, so even if they had the money and they're pulling it out of general funds, Oh, Nobra again. Nobra. All right.
Good. That's why you go to YouTube, man. At times, man. That's solid. I'm not even going to say that. Sorry, podcast listeners. That's great.
All I can say is money and cows. That's all. They don't
Listen,
got money.
they don't
got money to blow. Let's just put it that way.
They don't, and that makes me feel even better because they don't even have.
And that was a Birdman reference for Josh. That was a Birdman reference.
Oh, well, cows don't fly in any weather. So, we have I love that. I didn't realize that part of it. That makes it even better because they can't even keep up with us because they're not.
Their conference payout is like $10 million. The most they can spend is $5.
It feels so. It's good to be the king. So I will say this is great. This is great. You've made my day. I didn't realize that part of the contract. We could just end it right here. That's
why I'm the host of the show, there, because I make your day.
You know everything. I understand.
I didn't say that.
I will. That's true. You know a lot, though. I will tell you. So, and I know we're kind of going around this, and we'll get back into football and whatnot, and maybe we'll talk about Lindy and Andy Staples. There was a great meme I saw when we beat Oklahoma State in the baseball conference, the first game, and it was.
Oh my gosh! Hold on. You don't get to utter Oklahoma State's name on this podcast. They lost to Florida twice today.
Oh no!
How did they lose? That team is solid. How did they lose to Florida twice today? They were in the winners bracket in their regional, and they lost to Florida. OSU is now dead to me.
Oh, yeah.
So Florida's going to a super regional. First, they didn't deserve to be in that tournament, let alone, OSU. Come on, bro.
I didn't know.
We had an excuse with Florida State, but Florida, they were not a good. We beat them this year. They were not a good baseball team.
I know, and yeah, and UConn's beaten Oklahoma. I know they're not in our conference anymore, but yeah. All right. So okay. So those other cows. How about that? There was a great meme with them, and it was a Toy Story meme with Woody and Buzz, and Woody being the Oklahoma State or the other cows. I don't know if you want to call them that, and Buzz being UCF, Space U and all that, and I feel like if we keep beating them in most things, that might be our rival. And honestly, I'm not mad at that. Our new Big 12 rival, and I am not mad at that.
Well, okay. So if you go back to, I also did another on the College Huddle. I did the Big 12 preview for UCF, right? So go check that out as well. And by preview, I mean like the introduction to for the Big 12 listeners to UCF. And one of the things that we talked about there was that, one of the questions was, who should our rival be? And so as we came into the conference, everybody just assumed that OSU was going to be one of those teams because they have been successful and programs that have been successful, that was going to continue to be successful and kind of take Oklahoma's place in the hierarchy of the Big 12. The challenge that OSU has is they don't have the money they used to. And so you're seeing that effect. I mean, the fact that OSU has less NIL money last year than we did.
Yeah, that's kind of sad.
That is sad considering we moved up. Man, we're all with the cow puns tonight. But we moved up, right? And as we moved up, that team had less NIL money than we did coming from a G5 budget. So they are they're going to be hurting. But what I told him on that podcast was that I wanted OSU to be our rival. And we've kind of beat them in just about everything. So it was funny because OSU fans, I think, and this is a positive about all of this, I think that from a respect level from other Big 12 fans and specifically from OSU fans, we, even though we didn't have the season we wanted to in football or any of the other sports, I won't say that in any of the other sports because we overachieved, and we'll get to that on baseball and basketball. But, I think that we made a name for ourselves and solidified ourselves literally as the creme de la creme of the schools that came in and moved up from the G5. And I think that was a big part of UCF fans, or UCF earning respect from fans of other fan bases. And I agree with you. I want them to be our rival too. And I think we're well on our way. Screw Cincinnati. As much as I listen,
you're from there.
My family's from there, so screw Cincinnati as a rival. Let's set our sights, just like we had ECU as a rival, and before them we had Troy as a rival, right? Let's go for OSU, and then let's go to the SEC.
Yeah, listen, I don't mind having a friendly rivalry-ish with Cincinnati. I think that's there, but I do think Oklahoma State really feels like a good back and forth, but they have to keep beating us in a couple of things, right? And when it matters too. So I feel like there's something there, and that could really be good. I'm really excited to see where this goes. And listen, we wouldn't even be talking about this if we didn't build so much for about a decade, from 2013, 2014, at Fiesta Bowl on, to get to the point where we're considered one of the best teams, overall teams, especially football, but teams in the country. And now we get to show, don't tell it, because we talk a lot of game and we're doing pretty well across the board with our first year. And no one's talking about the $18 or $19 million haircut we have to take for the first 2 years. Beyond that,
well, I was going to.
We punch above our weight often as a university, whether it comes to academics or sports, and we're just going to keep doing it.
I think the advantage that we have is the fact that we are the haircut is still an upgrade for us. I think is advantageous in this new environment that everyone is finding themselves in. You hear UNC talking about, hey, we've got to find a way to generate more revenue. We have to leave, even if we like the ACC, because we've got X amount of capital plans, and now $20 million is going out. Then you've got Arizona State, who recently folded. What was it, Arizona State or Arizona?
I think it's Arizona State folded $300 million to their university. I think. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's Arizona State. Exactly. So again, we're well positioned from that perspective, and now we got billionaires jumping on. I mean. Hey, I cannot. That's transcendental to use words. And Josh, I don't think you put the word search out there. For those of you, we try to take words that you guys submit to us. So if you go on X or Instagram and give us words, we'll try to sprinkle them into the podcast. But it truly is. This is my word. Transcendental to have a multi-billionaire adopt your team. I mean. It could not be at a better time. And hats off to SJ Tui, by the way, for going and driving and creating those relationships to bring that type of donor to the table. And, at the end of the day, going back to the whole OSU conversation, OSU is going to be a tough football team next year because they've upgraded some things on defense, right? Their quarterback is back. Is back. He's a good passer. Their focus is going to be running, but they brought back a wide receiver that was injured as well, their top wide receiver. So there's a lot of things going for OSU, and I look forward to seeing how it unfolds in the future. But as of today, I think we did enough year one to earn the respect and say, hey, yeah, they really should have been into the Big 12 conference. And I think that goes not just from our conference mates, but I think about national media as well. Yeah, I'm excited about all this. I think every fan and every UCF fan who's been a fan, I'd say maybe a decade or more, has some type of context to a lot of this stuff and feels it maybe, I'm not saying even more than those students who just came in UCF maybe 2017, right? And saw things that fans who've been around for a while have never seen. We've seen the opposite, though, those offers. It is great. It is great across the board. I think we're all excited to see where we're going, how this comes in, and we have 4 more new teams coming in. I'm going to try to get out to one of the Arizona games. Both Utah teams are coming out here this year. I mean, it's going to be fun. We got 2 games on Big Fox.
Yeah, well, let's talk about that. So, that was another thing that we had in here. So Josh is just like pushing us right along in our talking points.
That's off the dome. I'm not even looking at show notes.
The dome. Oh my gosh. All right. So UCF, this was announced this week. UCF will be playing TCU in primetime on Fox at 7:30. So a couple of points about that. One, I think that shows that Fox's expectations are that we're going to be really good this year, which it seems to be, which seems to be the opinion of pretty much everybody, media and everybody alike, that we're going to be really good this year. And I also think that shows to everyone that's here. I don't know if that's because the Texas and Oklahoma slots will be open, so we have more Fox slots that are available. But I think at the end of the day, what that means is UCF is taking that step into that upper echelon of Big 12 sports, that we will be given the opportunity to get that national exposure on Josh, we'll get that national exposure on those TV slots. And last year we didn't really get those. This year we're being given that opportunity. They haven't announced the entire season. Obviously, there'll be 10-day holds depending on how everybody's doing during the season, and if we pony up to it. But this to me shows confidence that Fox has in our ability to draw fans and also create engaging games that will draw those fans as well, and how well we're going to do. I fully expect at the end of the year that it will be that Utah, and I said this on the Big 12 huddle, I fully expect that Utah game will have implications for the conference championship at the end of the year. So I buckle up, UCF fans. I know we've kind of been mediocre compared to what we usually are, like what we expect, right? But buckle up, Big 12 fans and UCF fans, because I think UCF is going to be for real this year. And I really think that this is going to be one of those special seasons.
Yeah. I agree with that. But the old school UCF fan in me,
I know we're always going to assume the worst.
Asterisk on the when everyone is healthy. When, not if, when.
Well, the difference is we got a lot of depth, right? Especially in the linebackers, DBs. We got Ja'Cory Brown in the quarterback position now.
That's fair.
We've got wide receivers that we've brought in. We've got running back depth in spades. O-line would be the only place that's a little questionable for me. And knock on wood, don't put that juju on me, Josh, as far as the O-line is concerned. We got 3 good offensive linemen. We brought an All-American offensive lineman in. We've got a couple of others as well. Drake Metcalf supposedly has taken a step forward. That's the only concern for me as far as injuries, because I think we're going to be good. Ja'Cory Brown was expected to take over at Miami. And I think if he has enough time in the system, and I think the difference is KJ Jefferson is not a run-first quarterback. So I'm not scared that he's going to hurt himself like JRP, as much as we love him for it, running over, 260-pound linebackers when you're, 205. We love the fact that you put your head down and do that. But from a quarterback position, we have a pass-first quarterback that leads Arkansas in completions, had a 65.1% completion percentage last year. We talked about the middle of the field, led in yards, led in touchdowns all time at Arkansas. So we've got to pass our people. Yes, he can run, but he doesn't when the pocket breaks down, which is more McKenzie-like. And I know everybody hates this because we always compare to McKenzie, but McKenzie was the gold standard. He operates, I'm not saying he's McKenzie. I'm saying he operates with a pass-first mentality first and can climb the pocket and climb the ladder in the pocket, and then can get outside of the pocket when it's necessary.
Yeah, that I was thinking. I was wondering where you're going with that, because I was thinking, wouldn't that be Culpepper until you went pass first, climb the pocket, and then I'm like, he tried, but there's a lot of running there. So yeah,
Culpepper and Bortles are more analog than anything else.
Fair.
Bortles was very Culpepper-like in the sense of how they played the game.
Yeah, and think that, I'm glad Bortles didn't tear an ACL, or he actually think Culpepper had a 3-fer, and that really did change his game significantly. Bortles, I wish Bortles had the opportunity with a stellar team consistently, because he's pretty much was 1 or 2 plays away from the Super Bowl with the Jags, but that was a slight anomaly with an insane defense. So yeah, we have a lot of depth. You are 100% right. I'm really interested to see how this all plays out, especially when we'll
do a preseason preview, and all of that stuff. But as it stands right now, I'm really, really confident in this football team, way more confident than last year, especially with the linebacker depth. Even Gus had an interview recently where he brought that out. Speaking of that, and we've been talking a lot about media, Lindy's brought out the Big Four cover, and guess who was stacked above Miami? Miami had this little head popping up at the bottom of the magazine. There was Florida State, and UCF, right? And RJ Harvey graced Lindy's. And that was one of the things we always talked about, right? Because Lindy's was one, because they have an SEC cover as well. We weren't on there. It was always the big three. So, hey, we've made it, folks. We are a Lindy's cover. I'm interested to see what and I'd like to get Brett McMurphy on to talk about, or not Brett. I'd like to get Brett McMurphy, but I'd also like to get my brain is
churning, but nothing's coming out.
Yeah, nothing's not what I want is coming out. The guy who does the other really, really good magazine that comes out.
Well, while you're thinking about it, I'm interested to know, and if anyone listening or watching wants to put it in the message or the chats there or whatnot, let us know. How many people do you think even know what Lindy is anymore if you haven't been a football fan for maybe 20 plus years? I don't think Nobra has
a lot of people do. And more so Phil Steele. That's who I was looking for. When we had Nightline, we used to talk to Phil Steele every year, and I'd like to get him back on because he does a really good job. They didn't do a super in-depth analysis on us. They did a pretty good one, but not a super in-depth. Phil Steele, and I'm interested to see what he does now that we're P5. He legitimately has magazines that go do a super deep dive on us. So I just think it's exciting for me that we're included in the Big Four. I think that talks about the brand. It's a made it moment. We talked about earlier in the season, football season, like it didn't feel like we were a Power Four member yet. It didn't feel like, it hadn't sunk in. That was a validation for me of who we are as a brand and our importance in the state of Florida. And the fact that we had RJ Harvey, 1,400-yard rusher, full body shot, and we had a floating head bobblehead for Miami, I think says a lot about where we are as a program. And that was really exciting for me. Another media personality we want to talk about, Andy Staples. He did a 4-minute segment on 3 today, talked about UCF quite a bit. And here's what he's expecting. Offense to be really good. His ceiling was the Big 12 championship title. So he expects us to be contending for a Big 12 championship title. Our floor for him was 7-5. And the more important thing is he said, I don't think UCF will not be contending for a Big 12 championship. Like that, those days are over. So his expectation for the program is a lot like ours. And I think we have turned the corner. I think, for a long time, we've been talking about the little brother or the little program that could. I think that narrative has changed. They understand what we have. They understand, Gus Malzahn, the fact, and again, it goes beyond Gus Malzahn. It goes to this program, this athletic department, this president who came from Missouri, by the way. He was the chancellor of Missouri.
Yeah.
This president, since John Hitt, have had a commitment to excellence in athletics, and that's not going away, irrespective of who the coach is. If you think about our national relevance, in spite of all the coaching changes that we had, that is a commitment that isn't going to change. And I think the advantages that we have, other people are seeing them. We got the logo now. We got the title of a Power 4 conference. And we're in the state of Florida, and all the things we talked about in recruiting, and we've got the funds, and if we got billionaires under our belt, as long as Taylor. And I don't want to take away from Taylor because that's huge.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, we are better positioned, I think, than yes, the SEC is making more money, but I think we're better positioned than Florida. Florida State is well positioned, but they are hurting for money. People haven't talked about that quite a bit, but they have huge deficits there. I think that we are well positioned to make that jump to compete for the Big Two in the state of Florida long term, as long as the rug doesn't get pulled out from under us, with the Big Two thing and a separate contract and all that stuff. So I think what you're seeing is you're seeing the media replay what we're saying, but they're not fans. They're media, national media. Josh, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, you said it all, and I'm going to get you right back to it while you're taking a drink for these you're listening. I think we're set up well. I really do, and honestly, I love that Andy Staples or anyone in the media is seeing the same things we are seeing. I think that's really the key to it. I think it was something like the Florida 7 wins. Well, we've been talking about that around here for a while. And that's the more that people see the program, see what we're doing, believe in what we're doing, and come to their own conclusions that are similar to the ones with maybe black and gold colored glasses have. I think that's great. And I think we're going to see more of this. I think we're going to see more of this in the national media when we start ramping up, once we get through the literally nothing at UCF except for the outdoor track championships until between now and early August. I think we're going to see this in July, in early August, ramping up to our New Hampshire game.
And this isn't just, and I want to point this out, for all of you guys that are out there hating on Gus Malzahn, part of this is Gus Malzahn.
Absolutely.
He gives us legitimacy, right?
Oh, yeah.
He gives us
100%.
legitimacy in the college football world.
No, 100%. And that's, and there, is it fair to say that, I want to say if there's even issues with the offense, I think we've given enough time for all the things and all the changes that have happened to both UCF and the college football world to catch up and understand what's going on and how these things work. And Gus and Christy, honestly, will have kind of changed things around as a program. And I really think that I'm not saying this has to be the show don't tell season, but it needs to be certainly better than the last few we had.
Can we be transparent?
Sure.
All right, let's be transparent. Gus Malzahn was pissed off last season. At the end of last season. I mean, as mad as we were, this was the first losing season for Gus Malzahn ever. Yeah. If you don't believe that Gus Malzahn is going to do everything that he can to come back and try to win a championship this year, I don't know what else to tell you, because that man, I've met him, and he's hyper competitive. He might have this aw shucks, I'm going to eat, smothered and covered at Waffle House and give you coach speak answers. But he's intense on as a football person. He's intense. He's just as passionate as the rest of us. And he took that as a personal affront. No matter what happens this season, you better believe that Gus Malzahn get every bit of his effort to make this a successful season for UCF football fans. And if you're not in the stadium watching these teams coming in, if you're not in the stadium with the team that we're fielding, if you're not in the stadium or at least watching on TV, if you're like in, I don't know, Maryland, there's a lot of UCF fans in Maryland, believe it or not, then I don't know what to tell you, because this season, between the determination that he has, the people that we brought in, and the effort that we put behind this, I truly believe this very well could be one of those special seasons, that we wanted last year. But I think the difference is we got our noses bloodied. Yeah. We understood what it takes, and we've made adjustments this offseason to get us there. And that's whether it's Gus Malzahn, whether it's the donor, the NIL donors, to make sure we had the money to get the players we need, whether it's the players that are involved. I truly think that this year could be one of those special seasons for us.
It's definitely possible. It's definitely possible. And that's why we have a lot of content to fill for everyone until August comes, because we there's a lot to talk about.
All right. So one other quick thing that's football related, not necessarily UCF related, other than who we're playing in bowl games. So one of the tidbits that came out is that the Pac-12 conference is we all know it's a mess, as they're kind of extricating the four new teams are extricating themselves from the Pac-12 and joining the Big 12. Their contracts were through 2025. So what's happening with the bowl agreements right now is the 4 Pac-12 schools will continue to play Pac-12 bowl games through 2025. Oklahoma and Texas will continue to play Big 12 bowl games until 2025. So interesting tidbit, little details that nobody has talked about, up to this point, because quite frankly, it's low down the list, right? But that means that we our bowl rotation will still include, in spite of Oklahoma and Texas playing an SEC schedule, will still include Oklahoma and Texas in our bowl agreements.
So we can't play Oklahoma in a bowl game. I would say this. So what's interesting, I'm wondering if the same rules apply on how to rank and order the Big 12 bowl games. I'd love to start researching that. Or can we just put Texas into the Cure Bowl or something like that?
I don't think they would do that from a TV partner perspective. And
that's fair. That's fair.
So, but I do think it helps us with our chances if we do well and we don't make it to the championship game for whatever reason. Knock on wood.
Yeah.
Don't put that bad juju on me. I do think that gives us an opportunity for the Pop-Tarts Bowl in Orlando. So
I hope so at some point. And I will tell you this.
Josh, I know you just want a piece of the giant Pop-Tart.
Oh, that's 100%. I'm going to try to find my way to get down there and eat some of the Pop-Tart after it goes into the toaster. The best gimmick of all of the bowl games. And I think other bowl games are going to try to one-up it this coming year. I would say this.
I don't know, the Duke's Mayo game bowl where they're dumping awesome. A bucket of like mayonnaise on the winning coach. I mean, great. I would almost not want to win a game because literally it takes forever to get that like mayonnaise out of your hair and your clothes. Yeah. Like I have a beard, so it would be stuck in my beard. I mean, ugh.
So I have a question. Here's a question. Texas and the SEC, Oklahoma and the SEC. Do both of them get bowl eligible?
I think that's hard because we almost beat Oklahoma last year. I don't know enough about the SEC and where they're at You know, we know Georgia's going to be good. Alabama's a wild card right now. We have no idea what they're going to be like under their new coaching staff. Auburn, we've got their recruits that we're flipping to UCF right now, and it's not recruits that they didn't want. These are recruits that they wanted. So I don't know how good they're going to be.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. Like, maybe this is
I just don't know. Ole Miss is Ole Miss. I mean, you know, whatever. I mean, who do you have that's going to be good in the SEC next year? Georgia's a lock. Georgia's going to be good. Florida's not, right? We better beat them this year. Tennessee is probably going to be good, right? Who knows? They've got a quarterback change this year, so we'll see what Heupel does, because we all know how we felt about him leaving the recruiting closet empty. So Georgia, Florida, Tennessee, South Carolina is ho-hum. I'm not really excited about them. Alabama, we've talked about. Ole Miss, we've talked about. Mississippi State. Mississippi State could be good this year. So, yeah, I think they would be bowl eligible. I mean, you've still got, at least for Texas, I don't know what Oklahoma's going to do, right? They lost Dylan Gabriel. We almost beat them last year. I think that speaks more to the level of the program and the level of what the Big 12 is versus how bad Oklahoma was. We should have beaten them, to be frank.
Yeah.
Andy Staples said that today. We should have beaten them.
Man, Oklahoma. So I just pulled up their schedules. Oklahoma, here's their SEC games: at Auburn, at Texas, in Dallas, right? Home at South Carolina, at Ole Miss, at Missouri, home at Alabama, at LSU. They better be Temple, Houston, Tulane, and Maine, man. I
don't know how hard Alabama's going to be, to be honest.
Yeah,
they're in transition.
This is that. I mean, as compared to Texas. Texas is, okay, so Texas at Michigan is going to be interesting, but they have Mississippi State at home, Georgia at home, at Vanderbilt, so great, Florida at home, at Arkansas, Kentucky, and at Texas A&M. I think they have just a bit easier of a schedule at Oklahoma. It seems as past SEC teams, but this is not the SEC cuddle, so we should probably move on.
Cuddle. I love how you said that. All right, let's talk a little UCF baseball. Let's pivot. Come on, do it with a little more energy.
I don't want to wake up my kid.
Oh, man. Okay, we'll get closer to the mic then. Come on.
Pivot.
Bro. Okay. I'm not going to say what I was thinking. All right.
I know you were going to say it.
Let's talk about UCF baseball. A little bit. Obviously.
I knew where you were going.
You typed it. All right. UCF loses in the regionals. This is Alan, by the way, who does not watch baseball. These are his notes. UCF loses in regionals, beat Alabama to start, lost to FSU, beat Stetson, and ultimately eliminated by FSU. Finished 2-2. Okay. Full stop. For those of you that are not watching UCF baseball this year, we've been talking about it all year. You should have been. Okay. Yeah. We had Coach Rich Wallace on the show earlier this season. I'd love to get, once he's gotten through the emotions and everything he's got going on, he's got the transfer portal going on right now for baseball that opened up about a week ago. And yeah, cough, cough, Allen, being thrown under the bus. Exactly. He's got all of that going on. I'd love to get him on the show and kind of do a season recap. This was his first season. Obviously, he played in a regional as a player. He's played as an assistant coach. He's played as a head coach. And, hats off to him. I'm just going to say this. Hats off to the team, obviously. But more importantly, hats off to Rich Wallace. He made some coaching moves and changes throughout the season that lead me to believe all of the things that I believed about Rich Wallace being the right choice being true. It was very tactical. He had some strategic decisions, but very, very tactical during the game. You can tell I feel like some of our past coaches had a game plan, stuck to the game plan no matter what. What I saw that was different about Rich Wallace is he adjusted his game plan mid-game and also mid-series, whereas our previous coaches didn't. And I think that's and then the other part about it is coach still has that player's mentality where he wants to win as much. This is his alma mater. This is his pride and joy. This is the Scott Frost moment for him, except he's doing a lot better than Scott Frost did. As far as UCF baseball is concerned, this team deserves your support. It deserves your NIL support if you can, and it's only $12 a month, by the way, for to support the Kingdom baseball. Just saying, putting that out there. And they played a heck of a lot of really, really gutsy baseball this year. It's funny because I've been talking to the guys in our text talk about how this team was a 7th, 8th, and 9th inning team. They would come out hot a lot of times in the first 2 innings, and they'd kind of go silent. And then 7, 8, 9, I never was afraid that they wouldn't be able to hit well enough to make it a game. Now, as far as this regional is concerned, obviously we beat Bama. Andrew Sundin had that game timing hit that he had. He is an important piece that we've been missing all year as far as power hitting and where he was located in the rotation to keep us going. We missed his bat.
Yeah.
During the regional, he didn't have the power that he normally does. He couldn't run. But it was encouraging for me to see him DH, designated hit, right? Yeah. And still be able to put the bat on the ball in spite of the fact that he sat for so many weeks and in big moments. Andrew Sundin is a special talent and someone that you should watch next year. We did lose to FSU twice. The first game, quite frankly, I think we could have won.
Yes.
I think that, we had that bases loaded situation where we had a swing at something that we shouldn't have swung at.
Right.
We had
3-1.
Yeah, we had a situation where, the 3-1 situation, like you said, that was our opportunity to break that game open. Unfortunately, we didn't do it. We did beat Stetson. This, to me, knowing those of you that haven't been watching baseball quite a bit, Stetson is a long-time foe for UCF. They were a rival. We were talking about rivals earlier at one point in basketball and in baseball. Stetson has been a very successful baseball program, but I can see the difference between a Power 4 program and Stetson baseball. And it's primarily in the pitching. Our pitching depth, we saw Cozy in that second FSU game. He's a freshman. He pitched very well. So that bodes well for us. But it wasn't our weekend. We mentioned Mikey Kluska earlier. He actually is a very good defender. So if you only watch UCF baseball during the regional, what I want you to understand is, and Rich Wallace had said this as well himself, Mikey Kluska tends to kind of have the yips in spurts. So he'll have a few games in a row where it will just, it'll just happen. Then the rest of the time, he's really, really, really good. What do you think about this? I mean, I was entertained. I mean, it goes back to that meme. Are you not entertained? Right? Yeah. I was 100% entertained. It was kind of like basketball in the sense that, I mean, not quite, because I think baseball achieved more than basketball did. Yeah. But it was kind of like that fact where, hey, it's the postseason. We weren't perfect, and that's okay. And we still, I felt like the way the Big 12 performed, the SEC got 11 teams in this regional this year. And the way that we performed, we started off 6-0 as a conference. That just goes to show how good the Big 12 is as a baseball conference. And I think for those of you that are questioning, where we were or how good we were or any of that kind of stuff, yes, we were 500 in conference, but it's a really good baseball conference and way better than the AAC. All right, Josh, I'm going to take a step back. Overall, what do you think about, the regional performance and where UCF baseball is right now?
So I think we did as good as we could against probably what will be, at the end of the day, a top 2-3 round pitcher in Jamie Arnold from FSU. That lefty-lefty combination. I mean, Jamie Arnold threw 15 straight strikes and struck out 5 batters straight. I don't know if you understand how hard that is. Having an immaculate inning, 9 pitches, 3 outs. I will
say this, though. He had an
9
advantage.
Strikes, 3 outs.
He has an advantage against UCF.
Yes,
we have we have a higher number of lefties than I think we have 4 or 5 lefties in our lineup, which is extremely rare.
I mean,
and that slider was
just swinging in the air the entire time. And that's okay. So that's a great case in point. And we still had a shot in that game. So my internal hope on the regional was to get a win, because we haven't gotten a win in quite some time. For those of you who are, and we got 2. Yeah, I get that. For those of you who aren't watching on YouTube, here's the deal. When I went to UCF, Pope and Arnold, coach was still there. Ben Stout was still there, right? When I was going to school, we had a killer baseball program for many, many years. It was weird not to go to a regional every single year, or darn near close. And within the last decade or so, it's not been that way. We thought we had the coaches to get there. We thought we had the players to get there. Sometimes maybe we were snubbed, maybe we weren't. But the combination.
Well, hold on. I would say 3 seasons we were snubbed. We were the first 4 out multiple times with 40-win seasons. I mean, fair. In baseball, that's unheard of, and that's something I texted you guys about.
Yeah.
That really frustrated me, that these announcers kept saying it was 12 seasons since UCF, blah blah blah.
Yeah. They're not going to go into
3 of those seasons. No, but 3 of those seasons, they were bubble teams and first 4 out. So it's not like this has been a trash program. And I want to make sure we're making this distinction.
Yeah. But that's a good point. But it wasn't the program that I grew up in the early 2000s or the early aughts or whatever. It hasn't been that program in a while. Good, not great.
I disagree.
It proofs in the pudding.
Well, let me say that. Let me say why I disagree.
Okay.
And I'll be really brief with this, because I want you to have your say on this. No, I'm serious. I know
I'm laughing at you being brief. That's all.
Yeah, I know. Me too. Think about it this way. Most of those teams that you're referencing, the Pope teams, all those other teams, those were ASUN teams, right? Yes, they're 1-bid leagues, but who we're playing against in the ASUN versus who we're playing against in the Big 12, 2 completely different ball games. And yes, I'm using a baseball reference, right? 2 completely different ball games there. So when you're thinking about that, you're comparing those teams. I would love, yes, we had great pitching in that 2004 team that Wallace was part of. I'd love to place them into the current schedule and see how they do, because I don't think, even moving up to, think about ASUN versus CUSA, which was a good baseball conference when we were in it, and then the Big East, which became the AAC. You had Houston, you had Tulane, perennial teams that have, ECU is a phenomenal baseball program.
Yeah,
they were phenomenal, right?
They were a great football program in the late 90s, early 2000s too.
But they've kind of fallen off. ECU has not fallen off in baseball.
Not in baseball, no, absolutely.
And had they not had their 2 starting pitchers go out with injuries 3 or 4 weeks ago, I think they went a lot farther and been a lot more dominant in baseball. But at the end of the day, those are 1-bid leagues. They're 1-bid leagues for a reason.
Yeah.
Right. And UCF has been in those one bid leagues where it's like, okay, if you don't win the championship, you're not going to a regional in spite of the fact of playing for and winning 40 games. That's why we had all those bubble teams. So I would argue the point that UCF baseball as a program was just as good, if not a little bit better. I just feel like the competition didn't make it as easy because in the ASUN,
or the circumstance.
Well, the ASUN, look at us as a program versus everybody else we were competing with, right? Look, I've been to these schools. I know what they look like. I know what their facilities look like, et cetera, right? So at the time that we were at ASUN, we were this huge public school. We could compete. We win the league. You move into the AAC and the Conference USA, there were a lot more peer schools as far as athletic departments were concerned that we had to grow past them, which we've done now, right?
Yeah.
Southern Miss was a great baseball program for a very, very long time. Still is, but they're, so you're talking about 4 programs to 5 programs that are regional teams on a consistent basis versus the ASUN days. And then you move up into the AAC, the Cows, they made it to a super regional in 2018. You had ECU, you had Houston, which had traditionally a really good baseball program. They didn't this year, and now we move into the Big 12. Okay, I said I was going to be brief, but we're all over.
That's why
I'm going to stop. But did I illustrate my point though?
You did, and I can see that point. I will see this, that we are now in a conference where it isn't A1. Basically, everyone in the semifinals and beyond are getting into the regionals. Even West Virginia making it to super regionals and taking over. Like they took over the winners bracket, which is great. So it is a solid conference, and that's going all the way back to your question. My thought on the regionals in the season. I think the case in point that we were in that FSU game, the first FSU game against probably one of the best pitchers in the nation, and we had a shot at potentially tying it late in later innings against a team. FSU is typically good. It was a one losing season in 75. Mike Martin's in Hall of Fame's probably everywhere.
I think it's 32. What was that? 32 World Series. They haven't won, but 32 World Series.
I think they won like 32 or 34 straight regionals or something like that.
Yeah,
they are a good program. It is, and we hung with them well the first game. Second game, we actually hung well with them until the 5th inning. Right,
we ran out of pitching because we had to play an extra game. That's what that was.
Of course, and so that's why my take, we did really well. We outkicked the coverage, to use another sports analogy. We did really, really good in this baseball season. Coach did wonderful job. I hope we have enough power and arms coming back and arms coming in, and people stick around, and maybe, I don't know if Neil will help get people out of the MLB draft. I doubt it I doubt it, and I understand.
No, but we do have a top 25 class right now.
Yeah, and I still think we're going to continue to push forward, and it's easy to do well in this conference and get to the point where we have to host. We gotta get hosting back. Look what it did for softball. We need to host, and we need to be able to host, because if the next time the time we host, I feel like will be the time we get to the super regionals. And now we have a ballpark.
There's an inherent advantage. I mean, FSU was ranked the number 18 in the country going into this, right? And there's a reason for that. And what I really compared it to was not the pitching, because we had the pitching advantage. But if you looked at their lineup, 300, 310, blah, 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 across the board. Our guys, we had some 300s. We were missing Sundin, which was huge, in my opinion.
Yeah,
we had a lot of 260s and whatever. As much as we were talking about Mikey Kluska, one of the things that really was eye-opening for me was Braden Calise. He really has come into his own. He was a freshman this year, played for us. I think he's going to be a really good player for us for a very long time. And by the way, 2 of the FSU starters were UCF players last year. They kept talking about Drew Farrow, and they didn't mention the fact, and I think they did that on purpose, that they were in a UCF uniform last year. Same way with Cam Leiter, who was injured the latter part of the season. We didn't face him, but he's a really good pitcher. So I think we just stepped up to P4 competition. Could we beat anybody on any given Saturday or Friday? 100%. Did we miss? Boxrucker? He was pretty good at times. Our pitching staff, the Doms, were really, really good. This was a very good baseball team. And if you're measuring the success of not winning the regional based on that, we still had a very good baseball team. We were missing some pieces for a super regional because remember, the super regional is like making a Sweet 16, right?
Yeah.
We were missing some pieces for that, but there's a lot of reasons to be excited about UCF baseball. And John Giuliano is one of those reasons. He's a donor. Coach Rich Wallace is a big reason. That guy, again, wants UCF to succeed more than I think even a lot of our fans do. So he's all in. This is his Nebraska. And I keep using that reference, but this is his Nebraska. And one of the things, we talked with him on the interview, but we've also talked with him outside of it. If you're a former player, you are still competitive. And if this is your program where you came from, you want to be successful. That is Coach Rich Wallace. If he could, I think he'd take BP with the rest of the guys and be in the lineup in a UCF uniform. He is that competitive, and he expects and he challenges the guys. It's not Greg Lovelady was more like supportive coach. I think Rich Wallace is hyper competitive and wants to win. He's supportive of his players, but he still has expectations of what UCF baseball should be because this is his destination school. It's not his step up, which is what a lot of other baseball coaches want.
True. And that didn't help for some other baseball coaches here because to be the step up, you have to excel. He's. I'm excited for the team. I'm excited for next year. This is probably one of the best sports teams in all of UCF this year. It's probably the most accomplished, outside maybe one woman on the track team, but.
Renaya Jones is who you're referencing. And let me say this about that. This crop, I saw this question being asked. This crop of UCF coaches. Yeah, exactly. The first time, a couple more things with Roger. Great one. Great one, Nobra. But I'm excited about this because I feel like as a program, the coaches that we have, and you think about it, excellent football coach, excellent softball coach, excellent baseball coach. Basketball, that's, it is what it is. But those 3 sports, when as a UCF fan base since 2018, 2019, have we had as much to look forward to and be competitive with and have as much confidence in the people that we have leading the program? I think this is the various programs. I think right now, it's a great time to be a UCF fan.
I agree. And that's probably what billionaires are buying in.
All right. Man, a few words on that question or that point. All right. Let's talk a little bit about transfer portal, and then we'll move on to a little bit of Josh's sometimes funny fact of the week. So UCF did have as we mentioned earlier, the transfer portal open, right? So it opened up last week. We have till the end of the week. We had originally 3 at the beginning of the day. We had 3 guys in the portal. This right now we have 7. I do think Rich is going to go out there and try to improve like he did last year. Remember, he came in June, so He did a good job of bringing in impact players, those two Notre Dame players that you guys were thinking about. Hey, guess what? They were impact players for us. So we have 7 non-starting guys that are in the portal. Everybody else that didn't graduate or isn't graduating this year is sticking. So from a pitching standpoint, that's a lot of returning talent that's coming back. Castellanos is coming back. Sosnowski is coming back, bringing the sauce. Everybody else is coming back. The folks that are leaving, Zach Bennett, a pitcher, Nick Vieira. Now, we were expecting a lot from him. He's in the transfer portal. He's also a pitcher. Grant Siegel, another pitcher. Cole Russo, that could be a potential loss. He's a junior this year. We were expecting more from him. Julian Balzer, he had some play, but really didn't make it happen. Carter White are in the portal. That's 5 pitchers and 2 infielders that are in the portal today. Let me say this about that. Rich will go shopping. He will go find and upgrade our talent. I'll just leave it at this. Did you feel like UCF baseball exceeded expectations or met expectations this year?
I'm going to say exceeded. And that's only because we didn't know what to expect. We didn't understand what we were going to get. We have a lot of people, especially UCF baseball alumni, who really wanted Coach Wallace on this team, like really, really wanted him on this team. And, maybe, there was some thoughts or and I'm wondering if it was tied to the New York billionaire of Joe Girardi coming into town, right?
Joe Girardi was on campus.
As I said, and it could have been straight up because of that. Right? Because if you're thinking about a New Yorker who has connections, who's already kind of around the program, paying for, a St. John's coach, right? So maybe all I'll say is this. I think because there was this unknown, but we had a belief that it was going to be a pretty good season. And when we talked to Coach on the podcast, I think we thought it would be a good I think it would be a good season, but I think this is as the best season we've had since maybe 2012 or even before then. So I know it doesn't show up in wins and losses when it comes to, conference and things like that, because we are in the different conferences like we were talking about. But I think we've exceeded expectations. I'd give it a 4 out of 5.
I agree with the exceeding expectations part, 100%.
Yeah, I think that's going to be. I agree too. I mean, I think it would be we'd only get further than that if we made the super regional or even if we beat FSU once and made it to today when we're recording, we might get that 4.5 and higher. I think we need the super regional to be outstanding just because it's not been done. So I think it's really good. Actually, no, it's beating or exceeding our expectations. And
I'm going to say exceeding expectations as well, Josh. I mean, nobody like going towards, and myself included, right? So, I think what you saw was culture. And I think that is, I know that's like a business term or whatever, but from a culture perspective, I think there's a lot to be said for a former player that has been there before in a UCF uniform and his ability to influence. I think there's a lot to be said for someone who helped get Notre Dame to a College World Series. I think there's something to be said for, the tutelage at FSU baseball. I think there's a lot to be said for this team. We didn't know which way they were going to head as they got into the postseason. And, they did well in the Big 12 tournament. They did well in the regional. And it was either us or FSU going to the super regional. And that was the number 8 team in the country with all of that history that we mentioned. And we were competitive. So It was a fun season. I loved watching UCF baseball this year. I love what I see that coaches doing from a coaching perspective in game. I love his fire, and I think it exceeded my expectations. I expected a lot of Coach Rich Wallace. I didn't expect it necessarily this soon. So let's just put it at that. Okay. With all of that being said, support the team. Yes. And since Alan decided to take the night off to go buy a car, Josh, what is your sometimes funny fact of the week?
So this is going to be a pretty easy one, I hope, but we'll see.
When you say it's easy, it's usually not.
Well, you know, think about where these things have been held before. The only sporting event you're going to see a UCF athlete participate in is probably happening during or after you listen to this podcast. It is the 2024 D1 Outdoor Track and Field Championships, and they were announced for a location and a university that's happening in a few days. Where are those championships happening? Think about sports and running and who might be interested in hosting that or have the facilities for that.
I'm going to say Oregon.
On the dot. I try to lead the horse to water. But yes, that's happening in Eugene. And that is, I think it's happening in Eugene. I think it's in a couple of days. I just looked at it. And of course, now I have can't remember it. I think it's happening the 4th, 5th, and 6th. I have to check that out. They'll be on ESPN2 and ESPN, men's and women's. And under the predictions, who's predicted to win on the 100-meter on 100 hurdles is another woman from Florida, not Renaya Jones. It's Grace Stark who is the predicted to win. Well, hopefully that isn't true.
So I'm going to say I expect Renaya Jones to win. However, this year, it has not only been the Renaya show. Several of the other track members that we've had have set records, have in some of the longer events, because Renaya, 100, 200 meters, that's kind of her. Yeah. 60, that's kind of her. Yeah. Right. And, for me, like this team in track and field, like a few years ago, we had a really good shot putter, female shot putter. This year, this track and field team, outdoor track and field team, has done a really, really good job in several of the other heats. So make sure that you're watching them, because it's the Renaya Jones show. Yes, she's an amazing athlete, almost Olympic person, just simply because she had a bad start on one of her events. That's probably nerves, but this track and field team is worth your time. All right.
There's 3 women who are headed to Eugene, actually. Long jump, 100-meter hurdles, and 400-meter. I hope one of them wins. It would be amazing. I'd love to see that.
All right. Okay. Do we want to talk about? Here's the funny part. Quick update on other UCF sports that Alan does not watch. We've talked about them all.
We talked about them all because that's all that's left. I mean,
Alan doesn't talk about baseball, or doesn't watch baseball. He doesn't watch track.
He watched the regionals.
Yes, he watched the regionals, but typically he doesn't watch them.
Yeah, he's kind of. That's okay. Like, listen, not everything is your thing, right? I'm not going to yuck someone else's yum. So
I'm not giving him a hard time. It's just our thing.
I know. He's sitting in a dealership trying to get a car. Come on.
Yeah, I know. I wish I was there with him because I could get him a good deal. That being said, so that means we really don't have anything else to talk about. We've got some guests that are going to be coming during the off season, so I want to make sure you guys stay tuned. Some exciting folks that'll be coming back. and then we'll gear up for the football season. Josh, thank you for putting up with me this week. Nobra, thank you for putting up with us this week. Nobra had worked through some very, very tough circumstances to be here and do this for us, so we're very appreciative of that. Nye is doing some work for us as well on the Instagram, so keep an eye on that. Make sure you're watching the College Huddle. Apparently, they like the UCF guys, so we're going to be making some more appearances on there. I'll be on there. I'll be recording with them next Monday, so you'll be able to see my good hair again next week. But all that being said, this is effectively the end of the sports season with for the year, with the exception of track. Take stock. Enjoy it. We're on another level and we're succeeding in spite of the fact of moving up, as we always have. Go Knights and
charge on. But it's just me. So the notes have a weather show. Are we going to talk about